President Kennedy begins a tour of 4 space installations at Huntsville, Alabama, where he is greeted by Dr. Werner von Braun, space pioneer and director of this research and development center. The missiles on display are dwarfed by the mighty Saturn rocket. This booster is the first stage of the rocket that will put the 3-man Apollo capsule into a 2-week orbit of the Earth in 1964 as a preliminary to a lunar shoot. The men who make it get very personal greetings. From Alabama to Cape Canaveral, next stop on the tour. At this U.S. space capital, the President has a long chat with Walter M. Schirra, Center, our next man in space, who is scheduled for a 6-orbit flight. The Commander-in-Chief learns from an expert. Next stop, Houston, where he is cheered by thousands of Texans on his way to a stadium for his key speech of the trip. At Rice University, there's a crowd of 40,000 present, and Mr. Kennedy calls for backing for the U.S. space effort. He says that we cannot afford to lag if we want to be in the forefront of nations. Then to the Manned Spacecraft Center, where the $20 billion Apollo project is in high gear. Here, the President sees mock-ups like the moon bug that is being prepared for a lunar landing, and the Gemini, a larger Mercury capsule for 2 men and other space vehicles. The President receives a briefing on highly classified matter and seems pleased with the progress report when he inspects the apparatus that the U.S. is making ready for further conquest of space. It was in Houston that Mr. Kennedy emphasized the need for peaceful uses of space. Fourth and final stop is at St. Louis for an inspection of the McDonnell plant, where the Phantom II fighter bomber is built, as well as Mercury and Gemini capsules. The F-4H is a 1,600-mile-an-hour streak of lightning. The Gemini, which was developed here, will allow 2 men to orbit the Earth for 2 weeks and will be used for experiments in outer space rendezvous and docking missions. This winds up the President's first-hand look at our space program and our progress in the race for space. Leather is falling into step in the fall fashion parade. Finished in an explosion of rainbow colors, leather has been styled into smocks and sheath-top skirts like this eye-stopping pair. Just the thing for a day's outing at Sterling Forest Gardens in New York. On the left, a pile-line coat, and on the right, a natural pigskin. Leather to get a man in a lather. Designers have let their imaginations run riot. They've even captured a leopard to line this hooded suede. Another offbeat treatment of suede, a shift with a cardigan jacket, and the suede hat offers Milady a chance to add another feather to her cap. To enhance the classic tweed, this 3-piece suit is trimmed with suede, and hidden beneath the sweeping lines of the coat is a leather blouse. And here the shift is treated with a saucy bolero jacket, all topped with a kidskin turban. The chest revealed in suede with a matching tote bag. These are the fashions aimed at women who want something different. And name me one woman who doesn't. This was the prologue to World War II, 25 years ago. The people of Shanghai, standing firm against Japanese threats of aggression, were suddenly bombed without warning from the air and from the sea. This was the horrible preview of things to come, civilians helpless before a doom sown from the skies. No longer was there any place to hide. Natives tried to flee into the international zone, and they died by the thousands under a rain of bombs. Simultaneously, the Japanese attacked Nanking, Tientsin, and Beiping. It was the beginning of the war that bloomed into full horror on December 7th, 1941. And the horror of any war can be seen in the faces of hapless victims. The Japanese had quickly cut lines of communication in sprawling China, and the people were left without adequate leadership. This opened the way to the slow communist takeover. The Reds organized guerrilla bands back of Japanese lines, bands that ultimately took over the local governments, then the sprawling nation itself. The United States lost no time in evacuating American nationals from the danger zones. Tenders and tugs took aboard families of military and diplomatic personnel under the direction of Admiral Yarnell. It was a precarious task to transfer them downstream to waiting liners. The course lay between Japanese warships in the river and Chinese snipers on shore. However, it was a successful evacuation carried out without injury. An inferno is left behind. Meanwhile, the United States moved swiftly to reinforce its garrison in the Far East. 1,200 Marines marched to their transports at San Diego on their way to war-torn China. Again, this was a preview of things to come. In 4 short years, American troops would once more pour overseas by the millions. It was the time for tearful goodbyes, the time for family ties to be broken, no matter how hard the task. The curtain had risen on decades of war and strife.